And so, to rest in solitude in every moment, in the deep solitude of self, resting in the being, the simple, silent being. Has nothing to do with the world or the roles that are played. It is just about being the silent being that is always here now, ever aware. There is no relevance to my life, right? What feels like my life. Not in the way the me thinks. It is to rest as the being, just being aware of the life that is living itself. Resting in solitude, untouched by anything that is playing in the appearance on the surface of life. Resting as the being that is ever free, ever clear, ever in the simple knowing of itself, before everything, before everything. The being just is, and you just are. Before all beliefs and concepts and ideas, before all play of opposites, you are. Just as you are, simple and free and aware. The naturalness of being is an aware being, a being that is aware of itself and its own simplicity, and aware of all that is moving and changing, and yet never moved or changed, never touched, never disturbed by the moving, changing. Resting in solitude, resting in silent sanctuary of the self, resting in stillness. You are the stillness. You are the silent being that is ever, ever free. It is to know who you are, know what you are in truth, the essence nature, and not to leave this knowing, whatever is playing on the surface of life, to be simply aware of all that is playing, to watch it, watch how it unfolds, to give up trying to control. That to attempt to control anything is just a waste of energy. The power lies in being aware, in being yourself, and being untouched, where it matters not what happens, because you are free of the play of karma, and you are free of the play of opposites, of duality. You know your goodness, the goodness that is the essential goodness, has no opposite. You are the light that is good before all play of opposites, all story. And this knowing is in the heart, this knowing of the primordial essential goodness is before the story, before the name and the form, before everything. This primordial essential goodness, the essence nature of all beings. And to know your goodness, you live your goodness, right? Of course, we can come to know the being that is true. And there can still be tendencies and conditionings that are wanting to play out. We cannot change anything by using the mind to attempt to fix. We have to come before all ideas that there is anything broken or wrong. We come to the essential nature as goodness, the wide open heart that just is, and aware of all that is happening. We do not, in our essence, natural nature, cast judgment or have strong opinion, right? And here we are just simply aware, watching the unfolding. And the power is in being the light of awareness that illuminates. The illumination reveals and it invites everything that is hidden, or we could say in shadow, to be illuminated, right? It illuminates the shadows. It invites everything to surface in order to come to the light of simple knowing. And so it is not really a surprise that as we deepen into being the light of awareness, that all kinds of shadowy, hidden, suppressed parts of ourself start to come forward to the light. Everything is longing for love. Everything is longing for wholeness, for happiness. Everything is longing to be resting in the oneness. Of course, everything already is, but it has to be known in the light of awareness, has to be known consciously. So it cannot be a surprise that as we deepen into the absorption in the being and we know this essence nature, this goodness that is before all opposites, that everything that believes it is lacking or wrong or bad will be dragged forward by the force of this goodness, of this light, of this love. It will be dragged forward to dock in the heart of God, in the light, to come into the light, right? It feels to these hidden parts challenging and intense to be pulled forward. to the surface and into the light, because there are reasons that have been created and believed in misunderstanding that there are parts of us that should remain hidden. But this is not truth. There is nothing that needs to remain hidden, because everything belongs to the same goodness. It is not about being a good person. It is not about being a bad person. It is about being the goodness that is the essential nature before everything. Being the being that just simply is. And here there is no thing to prove, because the essential nature just is. When we come to the being and we recognize this true essence nature, we no longer need to have a self-improvement plan. We do not need to practice techniques and modalities in order to improve the person. We recognize that it is pointless, because when we come to the being, we recognize that this living essence that is good and pure, innocent and whole, living in this truth, the embodiment of this, we could say, is being the living emanation of this goodness. And here, the possibility to meet all of the parts of ourselves that have believed, I am not good, I am bad, I am dark, there is something wrong with me, right? When all of these places can be met in such kindness, and true kindness is not layering on another mood that tries to confirm to the mind or the person. It is an eradication through illumination of all of those beliefs of impurity, unworthiness, unlovableness, of incompleteness. We recognize that true essence nature is before every mood, every spiritual mood, right? Essence nature that is good, goodness is before everything. There is such kindness here, such love here, because nothing is outside. There is no duality here in the being, right? There is this incredible, vast open space that welcomes everything. But the welcoming is not a processing so much that is trying to fix or change the mind. It is a deep resting in the being here now, and simply watching, being aware of what is playing on the surface, and the illumination and the warmth of true presence is what unravels all of the discordant patterns of consciousness. It is what pulls forward all of the parts of yourself that feel disparate and exiled, right? It pulls everything forward in order to weave all of the threads back into the remembering of divine wholeness, the tapestry of unified belonging that is the great glory of God, right? There is something so incredibly profound, simple, and yet wildly magnificent about how this all unfolds when we trust that grace knows how to do this. And when we rest in the light of the true being that is the essence nature of all beings, we are in collaboration with the light, not the light as opposed to the dark, but the light that is the principle of illumination, the light that is the overarching power that illuminates both the play of light and dark, right? It is by virtue of the true light that the play of light and dark, day and night, good and bad, all opposites and differences can be seen. So there is nothing to fix, nothing to change, nothing to do. It is just about being. Hear the power, hear the incredible, simple power of being yourself, being the truth, being everything that is longed for. And naturally being aware as the play plays its good self out, as life lives itself. Of course, we come to know that as we more deeply absorb into the being and the flow, we come to know that we too are that life living itself, that we are in no way separate from that life. But let us start with just opening to be the vast, open, infinite space that is timeless and free, and to feel the essence nature as this vast, open presence. So this can be known as true nature. We could say this can be known as who you are. But give up trying to understand with the mind, how is this me? How is this what I am? How can I identify with the being and not with the character? Let go of trying and it will dawn, just like dawn comes every morning without fail, so too will come the dawning of the natural being that you are, because you already are the natural being. And the knowing of this dawns naturally in the heart of being because it's already here. The dawning and the deeper absorption into this knowing arises naturally as a flow of grace. It is part of the great surrender that we cannot control this or get it, attain it, or work for it. We can only be the being, be still, and be taken. We could say, be still and let go. Be still and be. Be still and let grace, right? All the same indications of just being here. And as these words come, there is nothing to do, no instructions to follow, nothing to get, nothing to succeed at. It is just to be here, the felt sense of your simple existence, the knowing that you are here is enough. It is everything. Are you here? Yes, you know you are here. If you know you are here, where do you go to confirm you are here? Are you here? Yes. Where do you go? Where is that knowing that you are here? When the eyes are closed, you are not looking or using sense perception to know your here-ness. You are resting in your own being and confirming your own presence. This is the felt sense of simple existence. As you feel your own simple existence, the felt sense of existence naturally opens into the being. We could say the felt sense of existence is the same as I am. Before name and story and the first thought, I am. But the felt sense I am can feel to start with like the body being. But when you rest in the felt sense I am, the same as being here, the felt sense naturally reveals, almost like a spontaneous expansion into your unbounded self, before the character that you play, before the first thought, before the name and the story of a life. Before everything, there is an unbounded presence, and the felt sense of your presence, when just rested in, opens naturally to reveal the unbounded infinite vastness and simplicity of the eternal being. It is often overlooked because there is nothing here but emptiness. There is nothing here but being. And the mind can be looking for something. Always the mind is looking for something. So, in the felt sense of being, are you here? Where do you go to confirm? Feel this felt sense of simple existence. Can feel like my existence, but just to come to the subtlety, the subtle perception, we could say the aliveness of the knowing, is the simplicity of being, is the simplicity of the natural being. Here you are before someone. You are the emptiness, the openness, the spaciousness, the infinite unbounded presence of being. And you do not need to understand in a familiar way how this is you. The fact that you can recognize it is the confirmation that this is a part of you. It is, we could say, the lesser known often part, although in this circle, it's not so lesser known. It is the magic of being yourself. It is the vast, open landscape of your consciousness, the one pure consciousness. So there is nothing to do here but to attune to the resonance of recognition. As these words come, they are like a frequency, a current that is offering a graced hand to transport you, accompany you into the flow of grace. It is the kindness of the Great Mother that she sends taxis out for her beloveds to accompany each being into the grace of divine remembering. So take the hand Take the vehicle, the divine taxi that is alive in the resonance. The resonance is your own recognition. As these words come, where there is recognition, you are receiving the grace. And so just to say yes to the grace. No one is giving you anything. It is just an invitation to recognize what you already are. How profound, how beautiful you are already. Just to recognize that grace is flowing in you, as you. And these words are just a little support to attune to what you already are, and this alive presence, this flow, this being that is already here and that you already are. Just to feel the incredible grace of your own being. So we could say, let go into the warm, embracing flow of grace. There is nothing to do but be carried. Nothing to do, nothing to effort for or try for. Your sincerity is already here, right? Just through being here, your sincerity is already in place. You are already saying yes to the grace, to the glory. You have nothing to prove. It is an invitation to relax so deeply, so deeply, to let go into the warmth and light of your own heart, to let go in utter surrender into your own natural being. It is like dropping off the costume in this moment, right? There's a magic because here, resting as the aware being, you can see the character. You can even make a little move and feel and experience the character, but you can drop into the being before the character. You can see that one, but you are here before that one simultaneously. And there is this incredible, powerful knowing that you are the being before the person. You are the presence in which personhood is dancing on the surface of life. And yet you are vaster, you are unlimited, and you can feel that in the being and confirm it. Here you can recognize your own heart that is infinite and eternal. You can recognize who you are before you became. We could say, and who you are underneath the play of life, and who you will ever be once the body is dropped. Right here, this eternal being is the flow of graced being that is eternal, timeless, immortal, pure, innocent, holy being, right? There is no way to understand this with the mind. There is no way to give an instruction to the mind of how to, because only here in the being is there a depth of knowing fine enough, right? Only the fine knowing of consciousness, consciously aware of its own presence, only here is there a fineness where recognition can happen. And then as we absorb more deeply, we come to finer and finer values of consciousness until we know the pure awareness, and we even come to know what we are before consciousness, right? The miracle of refining and refining so that we can feel, really subtly perceive the finer and finer frequencies of our own divine being, our own divine self, the divine heart. So there's no way to bring this to the mind. What happens is that what the mind is consciousness. And the consciousness that plays as the mind, which really is denser frequencies of consciousness, these flows, these more dense frequencies, they just start to settle out, because when they know their essence nature, right, they settle, because all consciousness has a natural impetus to evolve into the remembering of itself. So if you are a bundle of consciousness in truth, and you are not the person that you think you are, or we could say the person that you think you are, or that you play as a character, is just consciousness, just a bundle of consciousness, of laws of nature, a unique configuration. And all that wants, that consciousness wants, is to consciously be aware of itself and to refine in itself. The possibility here is this gorgeous, unknown, uncharted territory to the human mind, that we can actually come to know what we are before our human life and dissolve our human life into consciousness. We can dissolve everything that we've created with the mind, all of our beliefs and concepts, all of our ideas. We can dissolve everything that keeps us limited into the being, refine it into the being, into consciousness, consciously knowing itself. What happens is we unravel all of the discordant, denser patterns of consciousness into finer frequencies, so that consciousness knows itself before, let's say, the human experience. And when consciousness knows itself before, it's consciously aware of itself, and it can be aware of how everything is playing on the surface of life. And just the awareness of the play, without trying to be someone, trying to fix it, illuminates and supports the unraveling of all of the discordance, so that consciousness can consciously know itself in and as everything in the light of awareness. And then it comes to know itself. You come to know yourself as pure awareness, the silence, the stillness, the silent being, pure awareness. The flow of consciousness continues to flow as the play of life, in order for consciousness to continue to refine and gather all of its companions, let's say, all of its discordant patterns, and refine all of the denser flows of consciousness into finer and finer flows, so that the lived experience is this fineness, this intelligence, right? Consciousness, consciously knowing itself, alive in the knowing of itself, flowing, still creating appearance where necessary, but you are resting as the being, consciously resting as the being. You know yourself as silent, pure awareness, the unmoving, unchanging, and you recognize this dynamic flow of life living itself in order for consciousness to know itself in and as everything, to experience itself. It comes to know itself through experiencing itself. We could even say that the deeper that we go, we are still transmuting this earthly realm through the lived experience. So all of our lived experience, regardless of how deeply absorbed we are, is transmuting everything, refining everything into a finer and finer knowing of itself. We are functioning according to our depth of absorption in service to the whole. So, as we are resting here in the being, as these words come, it is just to feel the resonance. There is nothing to understand. So some of what is spoken will land, and the intelligence, the resonance will seem to make sense because you are receiving the intelligence in your own intelligence. Let's say it's one intelligence and it's enlivened. It's your intelligence. It's pure wisdom. If the words do not resonate, then just let it all go, because what is happening is moving in the unseen to refine itself, and there is no way to understand or measure. It is just to be here. Just your holy presence here is the perfection and the beauty. Does not even matter if the mind is dancing in its circles, because that too is consciousness, and it is being refined and worn down and invited in and loved and held right here in the oneness. Nothing is not a part of this one great glory. So resting here, the felt sense of being, the silence, the stillness, the incredible solitude of resting, the depth of relaxation that illuminates this presence of being, the natural being, your natural self, and the knowing that this is who you are, this is what you are, this is a part of you, this is the greatest part of you, this is everything that is longed for, and it is always here, never ever touched by the experience that the individual has, never ever touched by the play of the world, always immaculate and pure and innocent. So to feel the silence, to feel the stillness, that you are the silence, you are the stillness. This is your essence nature. And here, the goodness before any need to act out in any way, just goodness. The goodness is who you are. Kindness is who you are. You meet yourself in these, let's say, these different, they're not really qualities, but they're essence, nature, the kindness, the openness, the love, the joy. It's all here as the essence, nature, but none of this is a mood in the way that we have got used to experiencing, let's say, love or joy or happiness when there's a cause. So when we meet the simplicity of being, all of this essence, nature is here. Joy, happiness, love, simplicity, openness, compassion, kindness. It's all here, but it might not be fully recognized to start with. But the deeper that we come into absorption, the more the light is shining and we recognize this as our own essence, we start to crack the code on what all of these words really mean. And in truth, it's really all the same. And it's the bliss of being. It is the simple bliss of being. And it flows as love that just loves. And it bubbles up in joyful, exuberant happiness, just in the knowing of itself for no reason. There's a joyfulness, a contentedness. There's a deep peace here that's undisturbable. There's a compassionate patience here because there's a knowing of the oneness. And so there's an inclusivity of everything, and there is no story. So it's natural. These, what could be called qualities, they are just the naturalness of the essence nature. There is purity and innocence here because we come to recognize who we are before the story. The innocence, the purity, the immaculate perfection. Again, it's not a mood in any way. It is just what is, without any story, without any judgment or reaction. It's just what is before everything, right? It is the wholeness that can never ever not be whole. It is this incredible fullness, the perfection, the simplicity in this essence nature, and the felt sense of simply being offers a taste of this. And the more there is an absorption into being the being, the taste gets richer. The taste is more alive. And all of these tastes are flows of the bliss of being. Sometimes the peace might feel more dominant. Sometimes the explosive love might feel more dominant. But these are not moods that come and go. These are just flows in the bliss of being yourself, being the natural being. And so here, this incredible naturalness is simply aware of all that moves and changes, the play of the world of phenomena. but is not touched in any way. And this incredible power to just watch, just to be aware, but not to be pulled in by the stories, by the happenings. So of course, when there is a major storyline coming in, we will be tested through, and reactions and resistance and triggers will pull us in. But this is part of the grace of how consciousness experiences itself in order to know itself. And we, in the knowing of the being, the sanctuary of being, we have this ability to, at some point, awareness will arise and we will rest and be aware and hold this vast open spaciousness, this presence for whatever is moving and changing. We can feel the feelings and allow there to be a dissolving of whatever is stirred, whatever is discordant into the being. And so too here, can we hold the light of awareness for the more subtle tendencies, the subtle ways that we get pulled in, the habits and the conditionings, the preferences, right? That don't pull the attention in a major way, but in subtle ways. We can watch. The way that this subtlety plays is that we just become aware of habits and ways that we move that are just not, they don't feel nurturing. They leave us feeling yucky, right? But they're not major storylines. So sometimes they can get away. We can also create ideas with the mind. I need to change that. I need to stop that. This is the play of the desire mechanism, right? And there will be different desires, different ways, different tendencies that pull us. For some, it will be experiences. For some, it will be food. For some, it will be different kind of ways of distracting and numbing, different addictive patternings, right? And again, they can get away because we can be focused with the major storylines. It's never about creating a mental idea of trying to stop these patterns. It's always the same. It's about recognizing and shining the light on the tendencies and the conditions and habits that leave us feeling undernourished, let's say, or that things are not being digested fully. Relationships that are not nourishing, right? It's all just playing and we're just watching. But we can watch in a way that can bring illuminated insight and support the unraveling. Sometimes these can be subtle and we don't want to illuminate them because we don't want things to change. We want to be the being and live this deeply, but we don't really want to change. Therein, we meet a little obstacle to being the being, because being the being means being the changeless, and yet to live and embody this true nature on the surface of life is going to bring change, and it's going to bring certain things that the mind might feel are disruptive to the, let's say, the status quo that the me has got used to. And this is where watching the desire mechanisms, watching where there is a conflict, let's say, with the deep longing to live as the being and surrender everything, to give it all to God and just live this. But this subtle conflict to be moved in habitual conditioned patterns and keep repeating the same tendencies of egocentric patterning. Sometimes there can be the mind or a mood that says, well, it's all just happening. And it's true, it is just happening. But we can shine the light and illuminate what is happening and bring a more refined awareness, let's say a more focused light, insight to those tendencies. Again, it's never about really making a game plan with the mind. It's always about shining the light and being that light, being the light of awareness. Can magically heal situations in relation dynamics without even having a conversation. When you hold the dynamic in honesty and openness, not projecting or involving the apparent other, but seeing in your own heart your part, taking full responsibility and seeing the dynamic and holding it in loving presence, can unravel and shift dynamics in the most miraculous ways just by shining the light in your own heart on your part, your conditioned habitual way of attracting and repeating certain dynamics, right? Remember, it's never about the other, but it is about the way that we habitually repeat and repeat and repeat the same patterns, right? So, being the being, being the aware being the light of awareness and shining that light as the knowing of yourself and resting in the illumined presence of your natural being as much as possible. Knowing through resting absorbed that this being goes nowhere and is always this light of awareness that is illuminating the whole show, that you're the light that is illuminating the whole show. We could say, as the presence of being, you're the screen on which the movie is happening, but you're also this light that is allowing that all to happen. Watch the movie, illuminate. Be so finely aware of that character without judgment, in absolute kind, loving presence, because you know the goodness you are in truth. When you know the goodness you are in truth, it brings this incredible capacity to see your egocentric patterns because you know that's not who you are. So you're not trying to protect them. You know the goodness. And so you can see the ways, the habits that keep repeating and pulling you away from the great longing of the heart to live this essence nature in its fullness on the surface of life. So here, the resonance is speaking to the laws of nature, inviting this heightened, finer awareness and attuning to this intelligence as your own natural intelligence, your own natural wisdom, the wisdom of the being, simply being. Pure knowledge is here in the knowing of being the knowing, right? So in this moment, nothing to do, nothing to fix, nothing to achieve. You just are. You already are. And these words are just an invitation to Feel the resonance of recognition. And this recognition is the recognition of your own being, your own heart. And you will feel the aliveness, the spontaneous expansion. Awareness is aware of the moving, changing, and awareness is more finely aware of itself, just simply being here. And then awareness of this silence, the unmoving peace, aware of being, awareness, like a shift of perspective, shifting from the felt sense of being the person to the felt sense of being the limitless, unbounded being. And this recognition in the being that just knows. It knows silently, and yet it knows in a very alive way that this is indeed what I am. The silence, the stillness, the simplicity of being the natural being. Being the light that is illuminating the sense of being the being. There's a natural luminosity in the knowing. It's like the light that's always been on. The song, the eternal song that has always been singing in the knowing. The resonance, like a beautiful divine mantra. The silence is humming. It's the pure awareness, purely aware of itself. The Om, right? It's just singing, humming, recognizing, illuminated. It's always been like this. It's never ever changed. The attention is with the luminous knowing of the being itself, the self knowing itself, the light, the shining light, shining, shining, shining in and of itself, standing alone in solitude, and yet utter oneness in the knowing of itself. Hear the love, hear the fullness in the emptiness, hear the equanimity of being, just simply being. And hear the bliss, the peaceful bliss of being the natural being.